dreams die. Rely on yourself and believe.
Good morning. Big day for many, me included. Um, I can say unequivocally for the last year, I have been looking forward to this day where I can share this information. Um, and I think every parent and every person that has a loved one that has ever been misdirected, lost, um, gone astray, angry, in pain, running. Everyone that has someone like that in your life, you pray for this particular event. Um, some time ago, last week, my son, oldest, uh, was baptized. And the events around the baptism was miraculous to say the least. That's the least. And so, what it prompted me to do was to give you guys a little bit of a rundown into his history and his story for the simple reason of giving you hope that when God says he can do something, he can do it. And that he does not need you to do it. He can use you, but he does not need you. What he does need you to do is sometimes to get out the way. He needs you to relinquish your grasp of things and what you want to control and give all control to him. Allow him to do what he's got to do, reach who he's got to reach, talk to who he's got to talk to, chastise who he needs to chastise. Just allow him to do what he has to do in order to say, do what you think is needing to be done. Because sometimes we pray for people and we want them to come to God, but then we go and we put our hands in it and then want to make everything about us. And eventually, what ends up happening is we muddy the water and delay. We delay the progress that God wants to have happen. We get in the way of things. And I want to assure you unequivocally that when you take your hands off of God's property, God can show out. He can show out. We seem to forget that this is about His glory, not ours. And when something is about His glory, it kind of takes it out of your hands. So I wanted to share Caleb's story with you because I think it's a vital story in the providence of God, the realness of God, and the proof of God. Um, so we'll start from the very beginning. Um, Caleb had a very tumultuous life, but just like his name suggests, he was born to do great things. He was born with a mantle of leadership, and when you're born with that calling, the enemy does his utmost best to shut that down. Now, if during this show I don't talk very clearly, it's because it's real stuff. Okay. Um, no, he's not going to be on, but you'll be hearing from him. He's probably in bed right now because he stayed up all night. He had AM runs this morning with his basketball. So if I become a little bit more shaky than normal, it's because this is a um, I can't emphasize how much it's a monumental shift for this kid, um, young man. So just want you to understand, if you see me pause to drink coffee, I'm not really drinking coffee because I need coffee. I'm drinking coffee to get my phase back to be able to talk. Anyway, so many of you know that he is my stepson. Although if you when you see him, you probably would never think he was anything step about him. For some strange reason, he starts to look like me, and he looks a lot like me, and it's I don't know whether that's unfortunate or fortunate, but he looks a lot like me. Um, so his father and him were super tight when he was first born and young, and kind of like my youngest and I. If you've watched any of Christoph's videos and hear him talk, it's pretty much the same person. Okay, when Christoph is young and versus when Caleb was small, and um, not quite sure why you can't hear me. If anybody else is having issues with volume, let me know so I can adjust that. Um, but I don't see any. I have no issues on my end. So if there's problems, please let me know. Please let me know. Um, anyway, unfortunately, his father decided to go a different direction with his life and ended up leaving. And because they were so tight when he left, it left a severe crater in Caleb's heart. Um, because it was a very sudden leaving, um, unexplained, didn't speak to him for years, lost contact. And so what it did was it took Caleb's trust of people that say they love him and took his heart and just, you know, it created a very calloused human being from that point on. And anger was his friend, and rage was his friend, lashing out was his friend. And he didn't really know how to process what took place compared to what he was now expected to behave like. This was him around the time that I met him. Okay. Cute kid. But he had almost two sides to him. He had this face attached to him, and then he had another face when he got angry. That was almost a replacement of who he was. Kind of reminded me when I get angry when I was younger. I had one personality, and then I had a completely different personality when I got angry, when my mom said it just looked like somebody else was there. Whoever I was gone. So this was Caleb. Okay. And for the most part, we got along. We had our issues, um, and occasionally we'd have our tiffs. And I have to fully admit that I was not the most compassionate father at the time, and I reacted because of where I was spiritually, which was a very dark place. And I did not do a whole lot to foster the softer side of Caleb. I could admit that fully and unequivocally because I knew. Um, I was trying to be more of a disciplinarian than I was a nurturing father, and it compounded a lot of his issues as a child. Um, And eventually, he became very distant and cold. Um, and on occasion, we'd have these really good communications, like we'd go out and hang out and stuff. But the true bond was never really established. We had a couple of years in there where we were really good together, but my inability to know what love was um, compounded his issues. And regardless of how much I was around, I wasn't there, if that makes sense. And so he began to kind of drift a little bit. And eventually we kind of came to this impasse and we settled on this marked separation between us. So along comes another individual into his life. This little minion here. This is him and his smallest brother, my latest one addition to the family. That's Christoph. And him and Christoph became this. Christoph gravitated to his brother like none other. I mean, he just clung to Caleb. I mean, it was like in the instant he came out of the womb, Caleb was his buddy. That was his homie. Ain't nobody gonna stop him from hanging out with his Caleb, as he called him. Whenever Christoph would get upset, the only two people on earth outside of mom that could calm this kid down was his oldest brother and the one just above him, Ethan. Most of the time it was Caleb. That was his go-to, was Caleb. And this was normally their look together. Okay. Christoph made Caleb come back to life. He brought out a side to Caleb that we knew was there, but we couldn't, for us, we could not bring it out. There was just something about he couldn't come back to that point. And eventually, when he hit his teenage years, the rebellion became full born and started to act on even more ways. Um, Eventually acting out in drinking and wrong company and um, juvenile detention and a whole slew of issues that popped up into his life where he was running so hard from who he knew he was because he was starting to even start to rebel against Christoph. Like that safe space became something he wanted nothing to do with. That's how far he went. Like he was so angry that even his rage was being taken out on his buddy. So he went to juvie, came out, went back to juvie, came out, and we could not communicate with him. We just there was nothing that we could say. It was always an argument, always a fight. There was always a, and then one night it came to a crashing halt between him and I. Um, he came home one day, fine, then left, and then came back that night around midnight, just in a, I mean, raged. Um, Came back threatening to kill me and all this. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. So by this point, I was saying, okay, I'll just be done. So I said to myself and to God, I'm taking my hands off of this. God, I'm taking my hands off of this. If this is something you're going to have to deal with this. I've 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 done enough damage, one, but I've also realized I can't do this. He's yours now. You're gonna figure it out, and whenever you figure it out, you figure it out. And I cut communications with Caleb. He was still living in the home, but we were like strangers. He would come, he would go. I wouldn't talk to him, he wouldn't talk to me. This went on for months. And then I read that letter to you that He wrote to me, and that was the first breakthrough that God had in Caleb's life, that very first door to enter his house. The very big door that was triple locked, 16 inches of concrete, that door was yet to be breached. To get to the inner Caleb, to get to who he was and who he was called to be. But that letter was the introduction to God, to his real introduction to God. So fast forward, and then another year, and God had been working on him, and he had still been fighting. And I mean, still, he did not want to. He didn't want to let it go. He didn't want to let it go. And then situations in his life came to the point where he could no longer run. Now, this is what God does. God will let you sprint. He will let you sprint. He gonna let you run because you know your legs ain't fast enough or long enough to outrun him, and he'll just let you go. Let you go. Um, and then this past weekend happened. This past weekend happened. And that is what brought us to this point today. I gave you his backstory so you can understand how far gone my son was. Yes, partially because of me, partially because of his dad, partially because of his mom, his siblings, whatever. I'm telling you how far Caleb went. So when I tell people that fatherlessness and how you when I talk to you about that stuff, it's not like I haven't been through it. I'm not speaking to you from a location where I didn't have to trust God, where things have always gone well and where things have just been smooth sailings. I'm speaking to you from a location where I have tangibly seen not just the hand, but everything about God move. People ask me, how do you get to this point of your faith? I didn't get here because I came to some reckoning. The same way Caleb has come to reckoning with God, I had to come to that same reckoning. And when you've encountered God in the most real and direct way, if you rebel past that point, that's straight out stupidity on your point. From then on, it's on you. But I'm telling you that the things I say are not from a place of piety, because I know my place before God. I can tell you right now, nothing about me in and of myself is worthy. Me, from my point of view. But I do understand that there is two different voices that happens. One reminds you that you're not worthy and will never be worthy. And then there's another voice that said, yeah, we know you're not worthy, but Christ. We know you're not worthy, but Christ. So you all saw that little picture of Caleb. And this is Caleb now. This is Caleb about to be 18. This is my kid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the interview I had with him, He was very content and happy to do. It's not very long, only about 5 minutes. And I really want you to listen. Just listen. Um, I don't know how he ended up looking like me. I really don't. I'm still trying to figure that out. But um, it's a little trippy. But he looks exactly like Christoph too, so that makes sense. Probably it's all his mom. That's what it is. It's his mom. I'm going to blame his mom for that one. In any case, this story is his retelling of the day that he got baptized. This is the retelling of the day he got baptized. And I really want you to listen to what he says. And I'll take myself off the screen because I don't want to be on when it's doing this. I want you to just listen. Um, and once you've done listening, I'll come back on and discuss what he said. Hopefully everything plays fine. I made sure to get everything else shut down on this computer, and it should be functioning good. So here we go. Okay, so thank you for doing this. How did you manage to go from walking home to being in the building? Like, what happened to make that happen?
I was walking from east, and I walked past the church, and I just heard "Come to me," and I was in my own head. I'm used to being in my own head, and I wouldn't have anything to come to myself. So I heard "Come to me," so turned around and went back into the church, and I stood outside of the service for a bit, just waiting, and yeah, that was probably about it.
So, what happened when you got inside? Did you manage to catch any of the sermon that was going on?
I came in and I heard David preaching about he was asking if anyone wanted to give their lives to Jesus or anyone wanted to be baptized, and of course it was the night I choose to come in is everyone's getting baptized. And I just heard "Don't be afraid" as I'm standing outside. So I opened doors, and as I walk in, I was like, this is it. I went and I sat in the back, and I was just waiting for something to happen.
So, from the back of the room, when he said, "Don't be afraid," what prompted you to listen? What was it exactly that made you want to get up and go forward and join the line that was ahead of you?
Honestly, I just started moving. I stood up. I had my hands in the air. I was just asking God to just show me. And I just started walking towards the pool. And as I was walking, I just felt lighter and lighter as I got there, until the point when I was standing in the water. It was like weightless.
What was your experience once you came out of the water? Did you sense a shift in who you were then and there, or even what your mission was going forward?
Oh yeah. I got up, and it was literally like all the little voices in my head talking about I wasn't good enough, or I've done this and I've done that, so I'm not worthy. It was just gone. And like, you can feel love from somebody. Like, you could tell, like, when there's just love or something, but it was just love itself. That was just the only feeling I could think of. It was just love. I got up out of the water. It was just love.
So you didn't call us, but I do understand why you didn't. And I'll tell you why I believe that. This journey was for you, not for us, not for what we see. This was a journey that was supposed to be personal. Do you feel now that you have a renewed vigor? And do you believe now you have a resolve to live a completely different life?
Oh yeah, I've prayed more this past week than I have in my entire life. And before, I just didn't feel like I was worth, like, I couldn't sit down and talk to him. I didn't feel worthy enough to do that. So now it's just, I'm in his word. I think a lot more before I speak. It's just like everything's lighter, everything's more clear now. So definitely that.
If you had any words to give to somebody who was either in your position just before you went up or the life you lived, what would that advice be to get to where you are now?
Honestly, just I can't say like if you want God. Everyone deserves a relationship with God, but if you really want one, you don't need anyone else. You don't need to talk to anyone else about it. You don't need anything. It's just you and God. That's all that matters. Just tell him yourself, I want you and I will live for you. And then from there, the magic happens. Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you so very much for sharing this story. The amount of people that will be touched by this and be shown that when God moves, nothing can stop it will be exponential. I want to let you know, though, that from here on out, the enemy is going to stockpile the attacks. But the main difference is this, that no matter how many attacks he throws, it will seem like nothing because you have a renewed vision. God has given you something stronger. So I commend you, and I look forward to having discussions with you future about how you walk and how things are going to go. Thank you again.
Yep. God bless. Have a good day.
So, when people say that God doesn't talk anymore to people, this is why I want to slap them. This is why I get so angry at people like that. This is why I call them out. When I hear grown, supposedly teachers and preachers of the gospel tell you that God doesn't speak to people anymore, I have tangible proof that he does. My God hasn't changed. He will still reach out to the people that reach out to him. He knows when a heart is seeking, and he will create a space for them before him. Anyone, anyone who tells you that somehow God is different, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. And anyone who tells you that God does not move on a heart that is seeking him is also lying to you. When I tell you that giving up what you think is important to what he thinks is important is vital, I mean it. It's vital. It is vital. Sometimes you don't have the key to save someone's soul. You may have the key sometimes to lead them somewhere, but you do not have the keys to save them. But when you relinquish control, God can do what he needs to do. God can absolutely do what he has to do for a soul. Never doubt your God. I don't know if I could have gotten to this place earlier. I don't know if I had given up my control that Caleb would have gotten here sooner? I don't know. Because I didn't give up control over myself then either. So I wouldn't have known. This is why it's vital for parents to stay focused on God. Thank you, Jamal. Because your faithfulness and your trusting of God does affect your children. But you also have to realize that your children have to make a choice. It's a tough blend that you have to come up with because while you have to parent and you have to be a disciplinarian at times, you can't force God on them either. Yeah, you have to keep God in front of them, but the way to keep God in front of them is to keep God in front of you. When you keep God in front of you, they can see that. And whether or not they follow right away is really inconsequential to when God moves. But you keeping God in front of you will keep you patient while they find God. It will keep you patient while they find God. We're stewards of our children. We're stewards. And sometimes being a steward means that you don't touch it. You just let it have interest grow. Sometimes you just let it sit there. Let it accrue. And before too long, the investment starts to yield profit. Not because of what you've done, but because you've taken your hands off of it and allowed the investment to do what the investment does. My son is a different person. I can tell you unequivocally he's a different person. Thank you, Demetria. Like a different person. His spirit is lighter. There's just something different. If you have somebody out there that has fought tooth and nail, they don't want anything to do with God, they don't want anything to do with you. The only thing you can do is leave it up to the only person who knows every type of ground. He knows the stony, he knows the thorny, he knows the good soil. And since you don't know what that person needs. But you've thrown the seed out. When God moves, though, man. Oh, him and I are homies now. Like we are friends. Like it's good now. The relationship is good. There's no animosity, no anger. It's good. And it's not good because we have changed somehow because of ourselves. It's good because God's the center of it now. It's not good because of how awesome we are. It's good because of how awesome God is. I didn't do anything to get Caleb here. In fact, my whole time before did more damage than any good. I may have had some good spots in there, but most of my thing that I did, and I can admit this and not feel guilty over it anymore, but it's factual, that I did enough to push him further away from God. But when God finally got through to me and I was able to let go of the situation and stop trying and let God do what he had to do, because God knew Caleb better than I knew Caleb. God's been after Caleb since Caleb was born. Thank you, James. Tiffany. But when I let it go, he could do what he got to do. Ain't nobody can do it better. The reason I wanted people here today for this particular thing is this reason. To give you some light at the end of your tunnel, that the person you've been praying for, the person you want to come to God, you need to get out the way. It's going to be hard, but you got to get out the way. There's no room for both you and God to put hands in their life. The only person they need to mess with anything in their life right now is God. And it's his timing, his sequencing. And when he moves, it's a permanent, proper move. Because he doesn't backtrack on his promise. He doesn't falter after he's committed to something. He doesn't shift. Mankind does. And when that person has established that relationship with an unchangeable, immovable reckoning of God, it's good. I only hope that his story can help somebody out there. Some struggling family, some struggling youth. I pray that they hear him. And for those of you who have been praying for somebody, and I want this is very good. I want people to understand this too, okay? Don't think that we've alienated or his father hasn't come back. His father has come back into his life. And that was tumultuous at first as well. But Caleb has forgiven. It's not like they have the most amazing of relationships, but in his mind, I'm his dad. He understands who his biological father is, but he has said it multiple times that he understands who his dad is. And I'm honored. I really am honored for that. That God saw fit to still have him view me like that, even past our tumultuous beginnings. Which is why I tell people, when God mends something, he mends it all around. But it's also a good story as to why it's vital for the adults to keep God as their mainstay. Because without him, you're going to be floundering, and you're going to get angry, and you're going to get despondent. Vengeance is going to come into your heart, and you're never going to grow. I don't know why I was placed on this path of this journey I'm on with my channel. But I do see God moving in certain areas, and I'm going to continue doing it as long as he moves. My only request of you guys is this: to share the story. I'm going to post the video on my channel for you guys to share it. Um, because I think it is good that young people hear that not everything going on in the world today is crap. That there's a God out there, the God of all, that wants a relationship with them. And they can see it firsthand from someone in their age bracket that he spoke to, and that he can speak to them if they would just give him the chance. You just got to give him the chance. Give him the chance, people. That's vital. Stepfathers that are out there, it's pivotal that you find God first. Because only when you do that will you be able to have a good influence over your children. But then when you don't have the influence you think you should have, relinquish them to God who can. Same thing to you, mothers and stepmothers and fathers, and those of you who have friends, those of you who have close family members. Get your relationship right with God and relinquish that person to the care of the only person who knows them fully. It might be painful, it might be tough, it might be hard to do, but you have to if you want to see them saved. You can't do it. I couldn't do it. His mom couldn't do it. But God can. People keep asking for proof of God. Here you go. You want proof of God. Here you go. I'll have my schedule for next week out, hopefully by Saturday. When I tell you this week has been one of the most energy boosting weeks for my faith that I've ever had, and I'm dead serious. This was one of those. And I can only hope that it does the same for people out there. This is not about building a ministry or anything. I just want people to know God the way you should. I want you to have that personal one-on-one relationship where you don't doubt him and he's everything, and that you know him, and that regardless of what happens in life, it doesn't matter because you know him. I don't care how much you know the book or don't know the book. I need you to know him. I want you to know the author. And wherever he directs you, but you need to know the author. There is no other translator, translation, preacher, teacher, direct. You don't need anything else to lead you but him. Stop underestimating his reach. Stop underestimating his prowess. Stop underestimating his hand. Stop underestimating God. Stop. Stop holding on to a form of godliness and denying its power. Stop. Many are going around telling people about the book, how read this, read here, read here, read, and they never direct you to the relationship to have a full, unequivocal trust of God. You establish that first, and he will take you to where to read. He will take you to what to know. He will take you there. You won't have to work for that. Our job on earth is to know and fear God. That's it. That's it. He's going to be 18 in July, Earl. He's going to be 18 in July. In any case, I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Um, spend this weekend getting to know your author. I think it's the 18th. Yeah, the 18th of July. Um, but do continue to keep him in your prayer, that he continues to deep dive after God. Um, because he's going to need the prayers of the saints to keep this going. I know that he is invested in this, but I know that the saints of the prayers, 19th, yeah, sorry, Mom, 19th. He's going to need the prayers of the saints. He is going to need the prayers of the saints. And I don't mean prayers for his future. I mean prayers for his relationship for God. If you pray for nothing else, pray that his relationship with God continues to grow. Nothing else. Everything else will follow after that. That is the seeking of the kingdom. Pray that his seeking of the kingdom comes first and everything else will come after. So I thank you again for all who showed up today to listen. Those of you who will be passing this on to those that need it. Um, God is still real. God is still moving. God still speaks. And he still loves everybody that wants to have a relationship with him. But you have to give up. Stop striving. Give it up. Give it up. My P.O. box there at the bottom. If you need to send anything, letters, comments, email, there at the bottom. And other ways to give is at the bottom here as well. It is available on Facebook as well. Yes, it should be. It probably won't let you share it yet because of might be live. I don't know how YouTube does this stuff anymore. Just wait till it's over and try again and see how that goes. We'll talk on Monday, and also see you today at the Savage Patriots. Don't forget that's today Cold War at 6:30, and then the mix at 9:30 Eastern, both times Eastern time. And again, people who have been asking about Too Strong, we're trying to change up our format just a tad in order to try and get around YouTube's algorithm change and sequestering of our content. So we're trying to find a way to get around it by trying a different method, a different approach. So just bear with us until we figure that out. The lives are probably not going to happen for a bit, but we will be putting out content. It's just going to be in a video format as opposed to a live format. Okay? We're not gone. We're just trying a different approach. Desperate times calls for desperate measures, right? So we gotta adjust with the roll with the punches, as it were. Love you guys. Mean it, mean it for everything. All the prayers, the well wishes, the comments, all of it. Thank you. This is about trying to maintain the family atmosphere of the kingdom, and that's exactly what I think we're doing, is creating a family atmosphere of the kingdom. Please like, share, subscribe, and look for the video I'm gonna put it up today. As soon as I'm done here, I'll put it up, and share that too as well, please. Wisdom calls to you from the streets, so please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die,